Well, the sun is that god-awful orange color, and it's casting a red hue everywhere because Canada is still on fire and it's bringing all the smoke down here to us. And the most common question I get is why? Why is Canada on fire? And the answer is a complicated one. So while we are struggling to breathe here throughout the entire northeastern United States, let me tell you why. So far, 14 million acres have burned, which is equitable something, to the size of West Virginia. If things continue, this is on track to be the second worst wildfire season in Canada's history, and there's not a lot of rain in the forecast. In Manitoba specifically, they've had 2.5 million acres burn, which is the most they've seen in 3 decades. 2023 was the worst season so far, and they saw 37 million acres on fire. And in Winnipeg, they're breaking 125-year temperature records. And I know some of you are going to eye roll when I say this, but when you look at climate change and global warming, Canada has been taking the brunt of it. And looking at data on feedback processes, when our global temperature is rising, Canada is warmer. When things are cold, Canada's colder. When things are warm, Canada's warmer. That's not surprising because dry air responds quicker to temperature changes. Canada as a whole is warming twice as fast as the rest of the globe, but their Arctic regions up to 4 times as fast. 3 degrees Celsius is pretty common for what you see in most published scientific papers. Don't forget that's C. So for every degree Celsius, that's 1.8 Fahrenheit. We're talking between 5.5 and 6 degrees warmer in Canada than it typically is. British Columbia, the prairie provinces, and northern Canada are the ones that have seen the most. So as a reminder, the prairie provinces, northern British Columbia. And that's where the fires are. And scientists saw this coming. In 2015, a study said that the amount of wildfires Canada was going to see would increase by 35 and 400%. Looking back at about the last 40 plus years worth of data, and you look at area burned in wildfires, we are hitting a major spike. It has happened before if we go back and look at much larger time frames. This is a 1 in every 100 year kind of repeating thing. It happened in the 1900s. It happened in the 1700s. Because there are natural cycles to this, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You do need forests to burn and regrow. But with this warmth, you're seeing trees and plants migrating to higher latitudes, and the ones that remain at lower latitudes are drying out and dying and creating a lot more fuel for potential fires. In 2023, those fires burned more than 7 times the annual average for that about 40-year period. So can't they just put the fires out? No. There are not enough firefighters in the United States to put out the fires that are happening in Canada alone, let alone Canadian firefighters. They have to pick and choose which fires to fight because they are happening in such extremely remote locations. Canada is the second largest country in the world. A lot of these forests don't have roads. The forests are supposed to burn. They do so every 100 to 200 years, and there's a lot of benefits to doing so. And by not letting it burn, you actually build up the potential for bigger and worse consequences later on. If you want an interesting read, look into why California has so many wildfires now once all their public lands became national parks and you couldn't do prescribed burn anymore. You can't say the fires are just because of climate change, but climate change is making them worse. Great paragraph right there. So while these fires always happened, it's warmer. It's drier. And there's scientific consensus out there that really high burn years follow times where you have excess precipitation, you have excess growth. You see that all that additional growth creates the fuel that when a drought happens, eventually dries out and causes wildfires to be much worse. Drought levels are at unprecedented or the extreme category, and the fire seasons are arriving earlier and earlier. And the reason droughts are becoming more prominent because you think, wait a minute, it's getting warmer. And you have taught me that warm air holds more water. And you're right, it does, as long as you have a water source. This is why the southeastern United States is seeing incredible moisture. You see really, really high dew point temperatures because you have the Gulf and the ocean right there. Warmer air can hold more water. Canada is dry. Canada is a very dry air mass. When you look, you have like polar and maritime and continental land masses and the way these all come together. Canada is dry. And when Canada gets warmer, it actually means the amount of water, vapor, and moisture available in that air decreases. Droughts hurt here in the US, but in the United States, only about 10% of our country is covered by forest. In Canada, it's 50. In the United States, if we get a drought, yeah, we see some increased forest fires. Through most locations, it means you can't water your lawn. In Canada, forests dry up and die and turn them to tinder. And the droughts in Canada have major agricultural impacts too. And in places like Saskatchewan in 2021, they had 47% less crops, almost half because of drought. Because these are remote locations, ignore the conspiracy theories saying people are starting these fires. There's no roads out there. There's no way to get out there. 93% of these fires are started by lightning strikes. And they don't always have rain. Those dry northern plains locations can get LP storms, low precipitation storms, where you see these beautiful structures of storms. They're producing lightning, but next to no rain because most of it evaporates before it hits the ground. It's a series of unfortunate events. And what's happening is we have a common process that's happened for longer than people have been living in these areas, is now exacerbated because people live in these areas. And with climate change, it's just making it worse. We're seeing larger areas burn faster than what we have before.